Hi, Aquarius. Welcome to your September 2020 Astro Alchemy. It's Rena here. And September is a month where there are some harmonious aspects, especially as the month progresses and we begin to have more of the Libra transits, because Libra is a fellow air sign and forms a trine to your sun or ascendant, which is the most harmonious angle for the easiest manifestation. But as the month of September begins, the sun is in the sign of Virgo. And for you, Virgo is the 8th house, which is a very deep house. In the universal chart, this is the house of Scorpio. And so it is dealing with, I would say, first and foremost, the issue of transformation. And that means that the person has to go beneath the surface in life. So as the chart progresses and you're looking at the 7th house of committed partnership, that is the house that is ruled by the sign before Scorpio, which is Libra. And the 7th house deals with marriage, committed relationships, but it's ruled by Venus. There's this sense of one-on-one relationships, you and another person. The 8th house takes that and raises it by 10 because it's, or I could say 100, because it's the house of intimacy. So it's below the surface of just, two people can get married and they might be doing it for ulterior motives. They might have no love between them, but it's kind of like appearances. And sometimes Libra is about that, while Scorpio is about, okay, what is really going on here? And so with the sun here and Mercury is also here, there is this desire for digging deep into something. And speaking of that, the word occult means hidden and is associated with the tarot and astrology. I don't really agree with that, because I think of occult knowledge as information passed down by alchemists and metaphysicians that to me astrology is too mainstream, and the tarot as well. But maybe back in the day that was true once when they were compiling all these different house descriptions. But it's like the meaning of life, the secrets of the universe is probably even a better way of putting it, conspiracy theories. So even if you're watching the news and you're saying this doesn't add up, it's like becoming interested in learning more. And Aquarius is already highly intuitive. So this is one of those things, and very intelligent. And to me, that's the best of both worlds, because I've seen lately some so-called psychics, and they probably do have that talent, but they seem kind of blindsided. And I think their own subjectivity is coming into things. Aquarius can have a lot of objectivity, not only being a masculine sign, but that kind of analytical perspective allows for getting away from the feelings and getting more into the mind and the logic of a matter. And so combining that with what is going on, which this is a water house, the 8th house, it can give, like I said, the best of both worlds. And this may be for your personal life or just what you're interested in the world. The 8th house can be shared resources. So with Mercury there can be contractual issues with money, maybe inheritance or taxes, something that has to be resolved. On the 2nd, there's a full moon at 10 degrees of Pisces, And this is the opposite sign of Virgo, so it's in the opposite house. It's in the second house of earned money. Based on my own experiences, I just broaden it to money that you receive, either from your own work or other means. And so something could come into fruition. I was just reading that this is the harvest moon, which I'm actually quite surprised. It seems kind of early for that. I'm going to have to double check. But that's very interesting because the full moon itself can be the harvest. And so is there money that is owed to you from work that you've done in the past, or a commission, a bonus, a raise? Maybe you were promised a raise and it's finally kicking in. Some people may be ending a source of revenue, and that is going to indicate that as well. It's as far as it can go. Retirement is a possibility, so it's entering a new phase. On the 5th, Mercury goes into Libra, so it's going into that fellow air sign. Ninth house is the God house, so but more in an overt way, more of the kind of the structured religions, organized religions, academia, teaching it, learning it. Maybe you're going back to college, entering for the first time. This would also be about maybe communicating with the university, late enrollment, trying to get in at the last minute, so back and forth with them. On the 6th, Venus goes into Leo. So these are friendly angles. Libra is a trine. Leo is a sextile. No, Leo is actually, this is an interesting situation because Leo is your opposite sign. But it is, in relationships, it is not considered, it's an opposition, which is considered a challenging angle. But because in relationships we're looking for common ground, Leo being a fire sign and you being air is actually compatible. If it was like two planets that were opposing one another, it would be considered challenging. But I think in relationships, it isn't the same thing. Of course, there will be differences. There will be areas where one, but they're called complementary signs because they do support one another in certain ways. And Venus in your opposite house of the 7th house is great for relationships, one-on-one relationships. Venus can even be about money, so this kind of speaks about that kind of thing. Maybe you have quit a job working for somebody else and now you're a consultant and will be working one-on-one with people and sharing your extensive knowledge with them instead of having to answer to someone. And this is something that you feel maybe more freedom. Earlier in August, and I'm actually speaking like I'm still in August, I'm recording this on September 1st. A month ago in August, in early August, there was a full moon in your sign, and that might have been when some Aquarians went through some changes in their work situation, their life in general, and that may have led you to be working with people one-on-one. But this is also good for romantic relationships. If somebody has been dating an individual, they may feel this desire to permanently couple with them, and that may be the first stage of either planning a wedding or, warming up to the idea of moving in with the partner. This could even be money from a lawsuit. On the 9th, Mars goes retrograde. This is going to be in Aries, another friendly angle. So there's a lot of sextiles here because this is a fire sign. And this is coming from the third house. So the third house is the house of, it's an air house, actually. It's Gemini's house, the universal chart. So it's a house of communication. You've had Mars direct here, and now Mars is retrograde. So going back to this idea of maybe an inheritance, if you've been warring with siblings about money or some kind of, I mean, it could be property too, but whatever. This could be kind of a lull in the action. But also, this may be something to do with, it's very interesting because the third house can be the lower grades or elementary school and things like that. And so if you're an educator and you have been maybe battling your school district or, curriculum, all these matters that relate to learning, you have this feeling of being at odds with it. There may be some transition to academic or higher learning because the opposite house is the 9th house, and that's where Mercury has gone. So you might be like, you know what, I have a master's degree, I could teach at a university, I could be an adjunct professor. I don't need to deal with these administrators. I'd rather do something where I have more leeway. I can teach how I feel because of course a lot of times what attracts a lot of people to teaching is that creative aspect of it, where you and an intuitive aspect where you can bring what you think your students need, and you have a different batch of students each year if you're in elementary level. Can you tell that I studied education? I was going to be a teacher. So when Mars goes retrograde, there's this feeling of frustration for everybody because you feel like your hands are tied. You feel like you can't do what you normally can do, but it makes it easier to manifest, ironically, as I have just found out. So it's like one of those things where you have to know, Kenny Rogers, may God rest his soul, know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Know when to push, know when not to. For those Aquarians who also have Mars in Aquarius, you're stubborn as F. You're very, have that steamroller effect and rebellious to boot. What a great combination, right? So, it's like my way or the highway type of a deal, but you have to realize that you can't always get what you want. And it's also about learning to handle anger in a way that doesn't hurt yourself. I mean, especially, this is also the house of your local area and, like your community and your neighbors. Additional family members can be cousins and aunts and uncles, I believe. But this is something that cannot go forward easily at this time unless it's supposed to. And in that case, anything that you're trying to accomplish in this area can happen if you take a more relaxed approach. So if this can make somebody very strident with their beliefs because it's communication, but it can be very aggressive communication. And so you don't want to get too aggressive when Mars is direct, but you don't want to be passive aggressive either. You want to be very, direct, but not on the warpath, I guess I would put it, in how you communicate. So for the first 9 days, Mars is direct in this house, and you have to watch your words, that they don't have this edge of aggression attached to them. On the 12th, Jupiter goes direct in Capricorn, and so Capricorn is the house and sign. This is the sign ahead of you, Aquarius. So you have all this stuff happening in the 12th house. And, Saturn recently went back into that 12th house in July. Dark night of the soul much? I don't know. Because, I'm trying to think about myself. Well, I don't think I've had it there for a while. But the thing is that maybe my solar chart, the thing that is important to remember is that everything in life, even challenging things, it's how you frame it, it's how you view it. And this is one of the reasons why transits given to the wrong person can be destructive. Because if a person is fear-based, everything that is seen as challenging is going to be demoralizing to such a person. They're going to feel a sense of helplessness being triggered. But if you're the type of person who is very can-do, and you don't have a certain sense of learned helplessness, Saturn in the 12th house, Saturn's about structure, getting rid of excess, can actually help you to order yourself as it relates to self-destructive behaviors. And Pluto has been there as well. Pluto, to me, is more, it's very transformative being in the 12th house, but it's uncovering, this is the house of repressed memories, past life memories. I think Pluto's job is purging those, and Saturn's job is cleanup. How do we take this and make some order out of it? It's kind of like, sometimes when I'm doing a private reading, I bring up these things that people are, that have been with people for their whole lives sometimes, and they will tell me about these things. But the one area that I'm not doing is I'm not solving their problems. I'm not kind of, giving them advice on how to solve their problems. And so I've thought about that, and I've thought, okay, well, what good does it do to bring something up if it's not going to be resolved? And I think that it's all a process, because nobody else can solve your problems for you. And even, and so what I'm trying to say is that this is the house also of mental health. And so if you go to a therapist, and you might, with Pluto in the 12th house, you might decide to go into therapy. Even that therapist can't heal you by themselves. They can bring up these matters that you're kind of either unaware of, these old patterns, or somebody who's a psychic, a spiritual teacher, whatever you want to call it, a spiritual practitioner, who's, doing your Akashic records, which could be connected to the 12th house. They can bring it up, but then you have to interpret it in your own way, because this is about you. They don't know you the way that you know you. And you take this and you run with it. So Jupiter here is, when it was retrograde, it might have been very, really like introspective and thinking about what are your values in this lifetime, especially as it relates to how you help others spiritually on the collective level. So your spiritual gifts, your spiritual purpose. Now that it's direct, Jupiter is also about, in the 12th, can be about good karma coming back to you, maybe in the form of money. Jupiter can be money, good luck. Retrograde, it could have, maybe the same thing, because you're talking about past lives, going over them. So see if things move forward. Pisces rules the 12th house, and Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. So there is that connection with Jupiter in the 12th. So that can be very fortunate in and of itself. On the 17th, there's a new moon at 25 degrees of Virgo. Again, we're looking at that 8th house. So this is the phoenix rising from the ashes. Your new self. You become a new creature. Again with this dark night of the soul, maybe kind of Jupiter going direct is that, what would you call it? Turning point where you are seeing things more positively about what has occurred in the last, well, you could say 12 years thus far since Pluto has entered that house. Of course, it's going to vary from one Aquarian to the next. But definitely with Saturn bearing down currently and in before March for the last few years, actually since December of 2017. What has transpired since then? Any major changes that, have set you on a new course? But that really may have been challenging in that time. And then, and one thing too to remember is that not only are you ruled by Uranus, but you are ruled by Saturn. That was your traditional ruler. And so when you have these Saturn transits, they do possibly impact you in a greater way. So Saturn goes direct on the 29th in that 12th house. And Saturn will go into your sign again on December, I don't know if it's the 20th, 21st, somewhere in that time frame. Very important event around the winter solstice or summer if you live down under. We'll talk about that at a later date. Potential magical times. So in any case, with Jupiter also going into Aquarius at that time. So this could, 2021 could be a very pivotal year for you, Aquarius, having both Jupiter and Saturn in your sign. So look at the rest of 2020 as kind of a wrapping up of an old unfinished business, which I would associate with the 12th house. So you're ready for a new cycle. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a personal reading, please click on the link below. Take care. Thanks. Bye.